Hello and welcome back to Storytime with Ranger Nathan. I'm, of course, Ranger Nathan, and I'm a park ranger at Rosie the Riveter World War II Homefront National Historical Park. Today we will be reading Chapter 7 of V for Victory, a part of the Homefront Heroes book series by Teresa Funk, who's given us permission to read today. Quick recap of Chapter 6. Miguel has made a new friend, Lucky, and they are going to work on the scrap drive together and have kind of become friends. Even though they are different colors. And so Miguel is still stuck with taking care of Victor, but he is still holding on to hope that he can win the scrap drive. Chapter 7. What No One Wants to Hear. A couple of days later, I'm at the store helping Mama box up some groceries for Sister Frances and Sister Margaret. Sister Margaret looks faint. Well, and why wouldn't she, wearing that long black wool habit in the heat? Mrs. Montoya, Sister Frances whispers, would you mind giving us a ride up the hill in your car? Of course not, Mama says, but she doesn't sound convincing. Tia Sylvia is late, so it's only Abuelo and me in the store with her. Shall I run the register while you're gone, Mama? I think I know how. No, mijo, Sylvia will be here soon, and I'll send Rosa up from the house. Just keep an eye on things for a moment, and sweep up there by the front door. Those roofers who came in here had dirt on their boots. I sigh and reach for the broom. Several minutes later, Tia Sylvia comes dancing into the store. She snatches the broom from my hands and drops it on the ground. Then she grabs my hands and spins me around. What are you doing? Carlos is coming home for a visit. Carlos is her fiancé. He's been up in Detroit working in a war factory since January. He'll be here tomorrow. That's great, Tia, I say. She's still holding my hands, and it's embarrassing. Rosa is watching us from the cash register now. Why don't you go tell Juanita, I say, to get rid of her. Maybe you can do something special for Carlos at Abuelo's birthday party. Good idea, Tia Sylvia says. You're a sweetie, Miguel. She pulls me forward and kisses me on the head like Mama does. As I'm wiping off the kiss, I can hear someone snicker. I turn to see Alfonso watching me. Somehow that guy always manages to sneak in at exactly the wrong moment. This time I decide to ignore him. I pick up my broom and turn my back to him as I sweep. I sense him moving, and I'm glad, but then I realize he's not moving away from me. He's moving towards me. He taps me on my shoulder, and there's a hard sadness in his voice. Looks like you're about to get some news, he says. I follow his gaze to the front counter. Standing there is a sight no one wants to see in wartime. A Western Union boy. He's holding a telegram asking for Rosa Montoya. Juanita and Tia Sylvia are coming into the store from the back, giggling like schoolgirls, but they stop short when they see the Western Union boy. So does Abuelo, who's been standing in the corner talking to old Mr. Sanchez, the knife sharpener, and Mama, who has just come back from dropping off the nuns. All our eyes fix on the telegram in the boy's hand. Since it came for Rosa, it can only be about Ernesto. Rosa doesn't speak. She meekly holds out her hand. The Western Union boy slips her the telegram, nods solemnly, and backs out of the store. I glance at Alfonso, but he drops his head to the side, avoiding my gaze. Rosa stares at the paper, her tears falling onto the telegram, but she doesn't move. No one does. My heart is pounding. I want someone to open the telegram. I want to know what has happened to my brother. Here, let me have it, I say. That seems to snap Mama to her senses. No, mijo, I'll read it. She takes the telegram from Rosa's trembling hand, opens it carefully, and reads. Her hand flies to her heart. She sinks back against the counter. It says Ernesto is missing in action over France. When they get more details, we'll be notified. Juanita is the first to cry. She throws her arms around Rosa, who can't stop shaking her head, her breath coming out in ragged bursts. What does it mean, missing over France, I ask, but no one answers. The women have huddled together to reread the telegram. Mama shushing them so the customers won't overhear. What do they mean, I say, asking, trying to sound more demanding. But Mama is helping Rosa back to the house, and Juanita is drying her eyes as she takes Rosa's place at the register. It means he was shot down over enemy territory in France, Alfonso says. Is he okay? No telling. Even if he bailed out in time, there are a lot of broken bones in those jumps. Sometimes parachutes get caught in trees. But if he bailed out, he might have escaped, right? Doubtful. The area is crawling with crowds. If he survived, he's probably on his way to a prisoner of war camp. I can tell by the way he says that he does not think my brother is alive, but he doesn't know Ernesto. I advance on Alfonso. Why don't you go home? You don't even have any purchases today. You just hang around here because you've got nothing better to do. He gives me a hard stare, then marches out of the store. He doesn't even glance at Juanita when she mumbles a half-hearted good afternoon. As soon as he leaves, Juanita slumps back against the shelves, quiet. I'm sure the women have told Abuelita by now. But what about Papa? I'm thinking about going out to find him, but then I remember Victor. Where's the baby? I ask. Here. I lean over the counter and see Victor sitting on the blanket behind the counter, chewing on the ear of his stuffed bunny. Juanita's not paying him any mind. She's staring off across the room, her arms wrapped tightly around her. Hand Victor to me. Why? It's lunchtime. He's probably hungry. I'll go fix him something. Juanita nods, but she doesn't move. I push past her and scoop up Victor. He squawks at me loudly until I promise him some peaches for lunch. He loves peaches, just like Ernesto did. I mean does. I bet there are no peaches in a prison camp. I wonder if there's much food at all. I talk to Victor as I cross the yard. I need to hear myself say things out loud. Don't worry about your daddy, Victor. He'll be fine. Tough as nails. No dang Nazi could ever get the best of him. We'll get you something to eat. Then we'll go look for Papa. He should be finishing up his deliveries soon. The roar of an engine drowns out my words. Victor tips his head way back, making it harder to carry his weight. I stop. We watch it fly over. P-38, I say out of habit. I try not to cry. That night after supper, it's too quiet in my house. Not even Abuelo can think of something to say. I get permission to run down to Gary's. He's probably heard about Ernesto already. News travels fast in this neighborhood. I scoot around back of Gary's house and knock on the screen door off the kitchen. When no one answers, I open the door and call in. Gary's mother appears from the dining room, supper dishes in her hands. Her face softens. Oh, hello, Miguel, she says. Gary's up in his room. Go on up, dear. Mrs. Bauer never calls me dear. I wonder if she knows. I take the stairs two at a time to Gary's room. It's hotter upstairs than it is down. I wonder why he wants to be cooped up in his room in this heat, but I don't wonder for long. Gary's sitting at his desk, bent over a new model airplane. He barely hears me come in. Oh, wow, I say. Where'd you get that? My grandmother. It's an early birthday present. She wanted to thank me for weeding her garden the last time we visited. She shouldn't have thanked me. I didn't even want to do it. Ma made me. What model is it? P-47 Thunderbolt. It's just out. Gary's room is a shrine to aviation. He's cut out ads for model airplanes and hung them on his wall along with old covers for magazines like Life and Popular Aviation. Anything that shows an airplane or a pilot. His flying helmet and goggles dangle from one of his bedposts, his bomber jacket from the other. His larger model planes hang from his ceiling. The rest are lined up along shelves on his walls, the top of his bureau, and the lid on his old toy box. They sit on the floor by the head of his bed. He's even saved every box from every kit he's ever assembled. There are so many of them now that they peek out from under his bed. I pick up the plans to the plane that are laying on his bed and study them for a moment. But I don't have the patience for model airplanes. Unfortunately, Gary does. He'll sit there for hours when he gets a new plane. I might as well go home. But then something catches my eye. It's sitting on top of the bureau. It's the piece of wing from the airplane that crashed in our neighborhood. He has it sitting there among his model planes and the toy planes from his childhood, like some favored souvenir. Something in me stirs. I drop the plans. I cross the room and pick up the piece of wing. When I do, I feel myself getting hotter. You kept this? I accuse. Gary looks up from the propeller he's about to affix to the nose. Why wouldn't I? It's cool. What's cool about a plane crash, Gary? You didn't mind it when I showed it to you before. Things are different now. You should put it in the scrap pile. Why? What's eating you? Didn't your mother tell you? Tell me what? He's standing now. Ernesto was shot down. He's MIA. I drop down on the bed. Oh, I didn't know, Gary says with a low, dull whistle. He sets his model plane down carefully and joins me on the bed. When did you find out? This afternoon. Western Union boy came. That's tough, Miguel. So, do you think he's dead? I glare at him. Of course not. Probably got picked up by the Germans. The Red Cross will find them. They'll let us know where he is soon. Gary picks up the plans and traces a line with his finger. What are you doing? Just checking something. Didn't you hear what I said? Yeah, I heard. I mean, I'm sorry about Ernesto and all, but there's nothing I can do, right? You can forget about your crummy plane for a minute. You could put that wing piece from the wreck on the scrap pile. Why? Getting rid of it won't help your brother. It's bad luck keeping it, and it doesn't seem right. Men died in that crash. Gary frowns, but it's the only piece of a real plane I've got. Don't think about where it came from. I jump up. How am I supposed to do that? You're saying you're really going to keep it after everything I said? Gary sits back at his desk and picks up the model again. I know he's made up his mind. Fine, I say, keep your stupid piece of plane, but I don't want your help with the scrap contest. Well, half that junk is mine, so come and get it, see if I care. I stomp out of his room and thunder down the stairs. Mrs. Bauer looks up from washing the dishes. Miguel, what's wrong? She asks, but I bolt past her and out the back door. When I get home, I dart up to my room, grab my yo-yo, but as I reach the landing, Mama calls up the stairs for me to be quiet. I quickly understand why. Victor is asleep in his crib, his head damp with sweat. Rosa must have put him down early and gone to bed herself. I can hear her crying softly through the door. I grab my yo-yo off the nightstand and warm up with the sleeper. I don't worry about waking Victor. That kid could sleep through a bombing raid. Ernesto gave me this yo-yo for my 8th birthday. Before he left for war, I'd gotten pretty good. I could do around the world, rock the cradle, but I was never good as Ernesto. I haven't played with my yo-yo much since he left, and playing with it now makes me feel sad. I pick up the photograph of my brother in his flight suit and lie down on the bed. I never sleep in this room in the summer. It's too hot. I've got a little bed outside on the sleeping porch, but I'm not ready to go out there by myself yet. The fan in the corner rustles my clothes, and I try to remember what it's like when Ernesto shared this room with me. A long time ago, when I was Victor's age and Ernesto was mine, but I can't remember. I can only remember him older, teaching me yo-yo tricks, showing me how to put sawdust on the floor at night, marrying Rosa. I wish I were old enough to enlist. I'd learn to fly like Ernesto and bomb the heck out of the Nazis. I'd get my brother back, but the war will probably be over before I'm old enough to fight. There's nothing I can do about it. I throw the yo-yo against the wall and Victor stirs. I lean over the crib and rub his back till he settles down again, his long eyelashes resting on his chubby cheeks. I remember the promise I made to Ernesto in my letter about Victor. I know he wouldn't have gotten that letter before he got shot down, but I wish he had. Wherever he is, I'd like him to know there's at least something I can do for him. I can watch out for Victor, the way he always watched out for me. I turn suddenly, looking for my yo-yo, afraid it might have broken, but it's fine. I roll up the string and set the yo-yo carefully on my nightstand next to the picture of my brother. That is the end of Chapter 7. Thank you for joining.